the kingdom, well, that doesn't mean that you are in the kingdom of God. Growing up, I remember Mom reading a number of children's stories to us. And one of the stories I remember sitting at my mom's feet listening to her read was the story written by John Bunyan, Pilgrim's Progress. Some of you will be familiar with Pilgrim's Progress. If you're not familiar with it, become familiar with it, because it's one of the greatest books ever written. But at the end of the original version of that story, there's a character who's named Ignorance. And he makes an appearance throughout the course of the story. And at the end of the story, Ignorance comes to the celestial city, which is heaven. And Ignorance, through the course of the story, it just assumes that he's going to get into the celestial city. But by the end of the story, he's actually thrown into hell. Unlike Pilgrim, who's named Christian, the protagonist of the story, Ignorance approaches the city, assuming that he's automatically going to get into heaven, even though there's no reason to believe that he's actually a saved person. Through the course of the story of Pilgrim's Progress, Ignorance makes reference to his good life. He makes reference to his good works. He makes reference to just being an all-around nice person. But the greatest failure in Ignorance is that he does not understand that those things are enough. They're not enough. He fails to understand that he cannot earn his way into the celestial city, and he does not deserve his way into the celestial city. He shows up in the meetings. He listens to the good, wholesome teaching. He's part of the religious activity. He takes part in Holy Communion, but that is still not enough. And then at the end of the story, Ignorance is standing at the gate, and the gatekeeper at the celestial city is looking up. He's above him, looking down, and says to him, in that story, the gatekeeper says to Ignorance, then they asked him for his certificate, that they might go in and show it to the king. And so he fumbled in his bosom, looking for the certificate, but he had none. Then they said to him, have you none? But the man answered never a word. Ignorance has no convincing evidence, no proof that he actually knows God intimately or genuinely. All he's ever done is take part in religious activities. All he's done is align himself with orthodoxy. It's never gone any deeper. He hasn't been transformed through his heart, through his soul, through his mind, through his strength. He hasn't been transformed in the experience. And as Bunyan writes in that story, so they told the king, but he would not come down to see him, but commanded the two shining ones that conducted Christian and Hopeful to the city to go out and take Ignorance and bind him hand and foot and have him away. Then they took him up and carried him through the air to the door that I saw on the side of the hill and put him in there. Then I saw, writes Bunyan, then I saw that there was a way to hell even from the gates of heaven. There is a way to hell even from the gates of heaven. You can be close, but not close enough. For Ignorance